Great. Thank you
Perfect.
all. I'd like to go ahead and call the Committee of Enforcement, Investigations, and Intervention to order. First item of business is to call roll. I'm the chair of the committee. Wynn, present. Board Member Cormack.
Cormack, present.
Board Member Lawler.
Lawler, present.
Great, we have a quorum. So first item of business. Oh, I'm sorry. Lori Melby.
Thank you. I am Loretta or Lori Melby. I'm the board's executive officer appointed by the board, and I'll turn it over to Reza.
Reza.
Good afternoon. This is Reza Pezhuhesh, BRN Legal Counsel.
Great. And I'll just go ahead and recognize Shannon Johnson, our Enforcement Division Chief.
It looks like Shannon and Nicole are both present in view.
Yes, we're present. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, first item of business is public comment. Would the board moderator please take us to public comment?
Actually, let's do the good afternoon. Welcome,
Great.
welcome,
Yep.
welcome.
Great.
Good afternoon. This is the BRN moderator. I will be moderating the meeting. To facilitate public comment, we will be utilizing the WebEx question and answer feature, now known as Slido, for those all in the not know that haven't known that should know by now. When the committee reaches a point in the agenda at which public comment is appropriate, the question and answer feature will be turned on and members of the public can indicate that they would like to make a comment by inserting the phrase, "I would like to make a comment," in the question box, which is typically in the lower right of your screen. We will also query our in-person location in BRN HQ. I will then call on the individual and unmute their microphone. The individual will have 2 minutes to make their comments. I will not give a warning as your time approaches. I will mute your microphone and inform you that your time has exceeded the time allotted. I will then proceed to the next member of the public who has a comment. Please note that the question and answer feature is being used only as a means for members of the public to represent that they would like to make a verbal comment. When your turn comes, you will be prompted to unmute. If your question can be answered, the committee will respond accordingly. When making your comments, speak about anything you believe is important for the members to know. Remember, committee members cannot address any item not on the agenda, items not on the agenda at that moment, items that you would like to add to a future meeting, or items that will be discussed later on in the agenda will be discussed at their correct times during the meeting. I will provide a brief reminder of this approach at the start of each public comment item. Finally, when the committee members or BRN staff are not speaking, I would like to remind them to mute their microphone. If I detect background noise during the meeting as a result of unmuted microphones, I will mute your microphone automatically. Thank you. Now we can open up for public comment. We will be opening for public comment now. Please refer to the screen share for members of the public to see how they should type in their request for comment. Did I open that? I did open that. Okay, I'm sorry. I've activated the question and answer feature. Members of the public can indicate that they would like to make a comment by typing into the question box, "I would like to make a comment." Please remember you will have 2 minutes to make your comments. I would like to give a reminder as the time approaches. I do not want to interrupt you nor cause you to lose your train of thought. I will mute your microphone and inform you that your time has expired and we'll move on to the next member of the public. I'll pause for a moment for members of the public to type in, "I would like to make a comment." Committee Chair, when there are no public requests for comments on the WebEx, we have no in-person representation in BRN HQ. Would you like me to close this window?
Yes, please, and thank you. Okay, so let's move on to item number 3.0, review and discussion and a vote on whether to approve the previous meeting minutes. So these are the minutes from April 17th, 2025. Board committee members, any comments or questions on the minutes?
This is committee member Cormack. I'd just like to apologize for my computer not working very well. It was noted every time in the minutes last time, so sorry about that. And if there aren't any other suggestions or revisions, I'd be happy to move approval of the meeting minutes from April 17th, 2025. And give staff the ability to make non-substantive changes as needed.
Thank you very much. Is there a second?
I second. David
Great, we have
Lawler
a motion.
second.
Great, we have a motion and a second. Thank you very much. Let's take this motion out to public comment, please.
We will be opening for public comment now. Please refer to the screen share for members of the public to see how they should type in the request for comment. I've activated the question and answer feature. Members of the public can indicate they would like to make a comment by typing into the question box, "I would like to make a comment." Please remember you will have 2 minutes to make your comments. I would like to give a reminder as your time approaches. I do not want to interrupt you nor cause you to lose your train of thought. I will mute your microphone and inform you that your time has expired, and we'll move on to the next member of the public. I'll pause for a moment for members of the public to type in, "I would like to make a comment." Committee Chair Wynn, there are no public requests for comments on the WebEx. We have no in-person representation in BRN HQ. Would you like me to close this window?
Yes, and thank you very much. So we'll go ahead and take this to a vote. Chair Wynn votes yes. Board Member Cormack?
Yes. Cormac, yes.
Board Member Lawler?
Lawler, yes.
Great, the minutes are approved. Thank you. We'll go ahead and move to item 4.0, which is information and discussion only, Enforcement Division updates. Shannon, you going to take this over?
We're not able to hear anything from Sacramento.
Me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
You can hear me now. Okay, great. I'm Shannon Johnson. I'm the board's Enforcement Division Chief. Excuse me. And I'll be presenting agenda item 4.0. I'm not going to read the whole agenda item summary. I'll just touch on a few points. First off, we're still involved in the NCSBN study, which started in August 2022, and we will update the board and committee as we move forward with that. At the May 29th, 2025 board meeting, the board voted to direct the board staff to investigate feasibility of nurse support group management solutions. And so this item is included later, I believe the last agenda item for today. Also at the May 29th, 2025 board meeting, the board voted to allow the oral fluid testing as an acceptable method within the probation unit. And we're still currently working on that amendment to the contract with Vault for that. We continue to recruit our expert practice consultants. Excuse me. Complaint intake, we're still triaging all of the high category cases, and we do triage with DFI and BRN investigations, I believe on a bi-weekly basis right now. Discipline unit, we have 17% of our cases are over a year at the AG's office currently. And the probation unit, we, again, are still in the approval process for both of the presentation that we will be putting online and the frequently asked questions. So they're in the final approval stage. And once we get that final approval on those, we'll be moving forward to be posting those on the board's website. And again, that's the FAQs, and it is also the employment. So the worksite monitor presentation and the overall what to expect presentation for probation. And then we have all of your statistical information at the back of this agenda item summary. Are there any questions on this agenda item?
Start with a quick question and then ask other board members to chime in. How do you feel like the oral fluid testing process is going, and are there any kind of compelling issues that we ought to know about?
You mean just in general? Or
Yes.
with getting it started with probation specifically?
No, just in general, and you know, negotiations with Vault and you know, just kind of, yeah, I'm just kind of interested, high overview.
Yeah, in general, oral fluid testing works as a supplemental test, not and as you saw from the presentation that Vault had done at the May board meeting, you don't want to use oral fluid only. You want it to be just a kind of part of your toolkit as far as testing goes. So overall, it works fine, and it's meant to be kind of an emergency type situation, which it works well for, and in rural areas. Now, for probation specifically, we are in discussions with Vault right now and trying to determine if we need to wait. Our contract is up June 30th of 2026. Do we make an amendment now? Do we wait and, do we go out for bid, and what that process is going to look like? So we're in discussion about that right now.
Thank you. That's helpful. Thanks. How about other board members? Any questions of Shannon? Yes, go ahead, Board Member Cormack.
Good afternoon. Hi, Ms. Johnson. I just wanted to flag again, I know we do this every time, but, as I just look at table A for complaint intake, we'll see, it's a little hard to extrapolate from the first quarter, but, over the past 4 years, it's really been, a substantial and sustained increase in public complaints. So, and it does not counterbalance by the reduction in applicants, right? Which is probably a less of a burden on the investigation folks. So, I just think we need to keep paying a lot of attention to this as we prepare for sunset. So really just a comment.
And I just want to make a comment to that as well. That in 23, 24, and 24, 25, we had a couple media sparked issues that raised a lot of complaints coming into the board, and that was hundreds of complaints, not just a handful. These were hundreds of complaints. Also, we had the FBI Nightingale cases. We had a number of other types of cases that came in. So I'm thinking maybe if we could pinpoint and maybe give you the number of those types of cases, because really they don't result in any disciplinary action. Most of them, a lot of them stop right in complaint intake. So they don't have an impact on the rest of enforcement. And I think that's really important to see that even though the number of complaints are going up in the year, depending on what those are generated from, they can or cannot have a direct impact on the entire enforcement unit. So maybe in the future I could try to pull out those numbers for you to show you exactly how many that, accounted for.
No, that's really helpful context to be reminded of that. I guess, though, there will probably always, though, be media-driven spikes. We should probably expect those going forward. And I understand that it might stop at complaints, but that's still a lot for the complaint team. So, and, I'd certainly like to hope that the Nightingale investigation was the last of it, but I don't know that we should expect that. Given the value of a nursing degree and, the way that the world is more interconnected. And so I appreciate that, but I think that, we're sort of in a new era in terms of electronic media and electronic documents. So, just something to keep an eye on.
I agree with you, Allison, and with that. One of the things is with the social media complaints, it does get quite a notice, and then it gathers a bunch, and then they all come in and do the complaint, which that is not something that we've experienced in the past. So that was new to us, and I think it was over 300 or 3,000 complaints for one of them that came through, because it had quite an emotional tug. One thing I do want to ask about, Shannon, can you explain what the applicants are in that table? Just to make that clear for the public.
The applicants, and we're talking again about table A.
Table A. Mm-hmm.
Back here. Applicants pending. So those are the applicants that once they apply, we have something that comes up in their background history that would have them sent to enforcement to take a look at the case. A lot of them based on the previous law, the AB 2138. A lot of those we look at, we take a look, do they fall within that AB 2138 criteria? If so, we just move them on back to licensing to complete the licensing process. But this just represents the number of cases that are pending within enforcement that are applicants and that are greater than a year. And some of those applicants, again, may be the FBI Nightingale cases as well still.
Thank you. So I just wanted to provide clarification. I know in some of our advisory committees, we're showing disciplinary cases, and then we're showing that along with the increase in RN licenses so that they can see that percentage. So I wanted to make sure that the public was not confused that the applicants on here is not indicative of the growth of our RNs. And so it doesn't have a relation like that. It is just additional cases. So the public complaints, convictions, arrests, applications, those are a total number, not in comparison to like applications that we've received for licensure or comparison to licensure data.
And I just want to say too, I'm sorry, because I was looking down at applicants pending lower down on that table. So the applicants that are up higher, the total number that came over, and then down below are the applications that are still pending. And those, and you can see with the applicants coming in, and due to AB 2138 and how we look at applicants now, that number has quite, it's decreased. 21-22, we were at 3,086. So we've almost dropped in half, 24-25 down to 16-27. So it has drastically decreased coming into the complaint intake unit from the licensing unit.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Johnson, just a quick follow-up. Could you just remind all of us and potentially the public about what was excluded under AB 2130, how that changed what we looked at?
It was criminal activity. So if they were to have criminal activity in their past that was greater than 7 years, or and that did exclude some cases where they were egregious type criminal cases, we would look at. That's why we still look at every criminal activity that we have that come across after they are fingerprinted. We just want to make sure, do they fall within the AB 2138 guidelines? Do they not? And then we proceed from there. So every criminal case still comes back to us, or applicant that has a criminal history comes back to us, but a lot of them don't stay. And some of them, I believe, based on some of the laws, have fallen off where they don't even come to us anymore. But it is based on criminal activity.
Thank you.
And to clarify that don't stay, that just means they don't stay in enforcement. They do stay with the BRN and they obtain licensure. Two of the things that also came with 2138 was changing the application question. We no longer ask for criminal history as part of the application question. They can volunteer. We have had some people volunteer that information and submit documents on application, but that is not a question that we can ask on our application anymore. We can only ask on renewal if they've had any incident that happened since the last renewal. So we do have to rely on fingerprinting for background. We do both DOJ and FBI. The other thing that changed with 2138 was that because we can't ask, we have to rely on the query to come back, and we have to request each document to come back and review, where previously if we had a bunch of new grad students in California approved programs, we would ask them to volunteer any criminal history as part of their application process and submit supporting documents. So that does, because that doesn't occur now, that process takes a longer time. Additionally, we changed the process with the licensing with that too, because we used to hold the applications for being able to take the NCLEX until the enforcement review was completed. We no longer hold them. They can take the NCLEX, they just can't get licensed until that enforcement review is completed. So we do get some reach outs from licensees or potential licensees that say, I've submitted everything, I've paid everything, I have taken my NCLEX and it says I passed. How come I'm not licensed? And it's because we're continuing the enforcement review prior to granting the license.
Thank you very much. And thanks very much, Board Member Cormack, for that question. That's a great question. I wonder, Shannon, if we could somehow maybe asterisk some of these numbers and then do a drop down where you could say triggered by, whatever, so that we can really see what's driving some of these increases and will just help us be better informed about what's really going on with the numbers.
I can look at possibly even adding that if we have time to the board meeting stats.
Yeah, and I'm not directing you to do it for the next board meeting, but just like you said, oh, well, some of this is really explainable. And if to the extent it is, that would be good information to have. Great. Any other questions on item 4.0?
None from me. Nope.
Oh, please go ahead, board member Lawler.
No, I was just saying no questions
Oh,
from me.
none
I'm good.
from you. Sorry. She said one from me. Thank you very much. So again, this is information only, so we won't be making a motion, but we will be going out for public comment. So board moderator, if you would please take us to public comment.
We will be opening for public comment now. Please refer to the screen share for members of the public to see how they should type in their request for comment. I've activated the question and answer feature. Members of the public can indicate they would like to make a comment by typing into the question box, I would like to make a comment. Please remember you will have 2 minutes to make your comments. I will not give a reminder as your time approaches. I do not want to interrupt you nor cause you to lose your train of thought. I will mute your microphone and inform you that your time has expired and we'll move on to the next member of the public. I'll pause for a moment for members of the public to type in, I would like to make a comment. Committee Chair Wynn, there are no public requests for comments on the WebEx. We have no in-person representation in BRN HQ. Would you like me to close this window?
Yes, please, and thank you. Okay, so that concludes item number 4. We'll move to item number 5, which again is information only, and it's a report on the intervention program.
Good afternoon. Agenda item 5 is investigations. Division update.
Great, thank you.
No problem. Hello, my name is Nicole Bowles. I am the Deputy Chief of Investigations, and I'm here to give the Investigations Division update. For some general information, Investigations continues to work with the Office of Organizational Improvement to assess and map our workflows, timeframes, and procedures to streamline and improve our internal processes. I report out on this every committee and board meeting since I joined the Board of Registered Nursing, and I'm happy to report that out of the 32 processes that we identified for mapping, we have 20 of those complete. It's a very lengthy process. Each mapping session takes 3 hours and is a really heavy lift for the investigation subject matter experts. Within those mapping sessions, we have 3 special investigators from each regional unit, as well as a supervising special investigator to oversee that mapping and ensure that the processes that we're capturing are the current processes, and to identify any concerns that we might have with the current process and bring that back to the group. The Department of Consumer Affairs, consisting of 36 boards and bureaus that regulate over 3.4 million licensees in more than 250 various professions and occupations, is working to align as many processes as possible. So in support of that initiative, the BRN initiated a collaborative effort with the Medical Board of California for assessing, mapping, and sharing workflows. The partnership aims to promote alignment, enhance efficiency, and support the identification and sharing of best practices across both organizations. On June 10th, 2025, Investigations launched the Enhanced Triage and Preliminary Case Work Pilot. The board worked closely with the Department of Consumer Affairs to develop the pilot, in which the Associate Governmental Program Analyst, or AGPA, is assigned more than 30 investigations at a time to perform preliminary casework and enhanced triage prior to formal assignment to the special investigators. This pilot, we are hoping, after we collect some more data, we'll demonstrate whether or not our efforts to try and assist the special investigators with the enhanced triage and preliminary work is helpful. So the AGPA in the preliminary or enhanced triage phase is gathering documents to assist the special investigators before those cases are assigned, trying to identify any of the nurses that we don't have enough information based on the complaint. We might not have a full name, and we might not be able to identify them from the beginning. So that the AGPA is assisting with gathering documents and trying to identify who that individual is that we have the complaint filed against. The pilot was originally scheduled to conclude on October 8th, 2025, but it was extended by an additional 120 days to allow for the continued collection of analysis and data. The extension ensures that future decisions are evidence-based and supported by measurable outcomes. As of October 3rd, 2025, the full-time special investigators have an average of 29 active cases, and due to the continued high caseload, the supervising special investigators and I continue to actively work cases, and we continue to identify and explore multiple options to address the high caseload. Investigations is still fully staffed with 21 special investigator positions, and we have 2 limited-term special investigator positions and 1 retired annuitant special investigator position. On pages 36 and 37, you will find our table as well as our bar chart. With the BRN cases referred, cases pending, and cases completed, as well as the Division of Investigations cases referred, pending, and completed. Are there any questions?
Yes, thank you very much. Really great report, Nicole. So I think this is maybe the 4th committee in a row that you have said that because you have high caseloads, the supervising investigators and the deputy chief are actively working cases. Any end in sight?
I hope so. The supervisors and I try to do the best we can to balance our managerial duties as well as work cases, but we're not working a full caseload. The cases that we try to select to work for ourselves are the cases that we identify as not having direct patient harm. Lower level allegations that we can work through that might not need an immediate referral to a special investigator who can work them more efficiently. If we do find that one of the cases we've assigned to ourselves rises to the level of needing a more efficient investigation, that will then be referred to a special investigator to complete that case. We also assist with the preliminary tasks of trying to set up a file for the investigators and just doing some of that background research on our subject nurses.
And then my last question is just having to do with this pilot project on the, the triaging.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been at it for 4 months-ish, and you've extended it, so it must be showing some promise. I'm just wondering if you could give us a peek into, what you're seeing.
Sure. I don't have any statistical data for you on that pilot, but I believe that it's assisting the investigators. The AGPA and I have discussions about the complaint analysis that she does to formulate a chronology for the investigators so that when they do get this case assigned to them, they have the chronology to follow and all the steps that the AGPA took to try to identify a registered nurse or obtain a release of medical information for a patient or make contact with the complainant to gather some additional information for them. So I believe it's helpful. We've had some feedback on the FBI cases that the AGPA also assists with some of the preliminary and enhanced triage work. That feedback was helpful, and we took that back to enhance the complaint analysis that she provides to them before they receive the case.
Thank you very much. Any questions from committee members? Okay, hearing none,
No,
Tricia,
Allison,
sorry, Chair Whale.
Oh,
may
I'm
I?
sorry, I'm not
Yep.
seeing you. Sorry about that. Please go
Okay.
ahead, Ms. Cormack.
All right, I'll just unmute. Thank you so much. So, thanks, Nicole. I guess, if we follow on from what I was talking about with, Ms. Johnson, and I look on table A in the very top line, so I'm on page 36. Last fiscal year, we had a 37% increase in the cases referred, and it looks like you're on the same, trajectory with 1/4 of data for the current fiscal year. So that's, a lot more cases pending now than there were 3 years ago, despite the fact that you're completing more. So maybe it's not in enforcements, maybe it's in investigations, but it does seem like, pretty, if there were some, unusual things that happened last year, maybe if I'm gonna let you answer this, but I'm just thinking out like, if we had the Nightingale stuff, maybe that has made its way in here, and maybe the social media ones where there were essentially duplicative complaints, those didn't make it here. But what are your thoughts on whether or not we think this new level is going to persist, or whether or not it's got some numbers in there inflating it?
The FBI Nightingale cases, I believe, do inflate this number, not so much with the social media complaints, because again, those are worked within the enforcement unit. We might have 1 or 2 that come through as the actual complaint for that registered nurse that we will then investigate, or it may go to the Division of Investigations when it's social media generated, and just depending on the allegations. And with our complaint prioritization referral guidelines, we follow those guidelines. So depending on what those allegations are with the social media complaints, it could either come to BRN investigations or go to the Division of Investigations within the Department of Consumer Affairs. And sorry for using the acronyms. I had to clarify. The FBI Nightingale cases definitely inflate, but the social media cases, no.
Okay. And then just to go a little bit high level, because, I think this is important for people to know, like, are you seeing any changes in what people are being investigated for? So, for example, 2 things that we've seen pop up in the past, couple of years. One would be nurses in med spas who are unfamiliar with the compounding rules. Another might be there was the big chunk of Nightingale. But is there anything else that you see emerging that we should be aware of and the public should be aware of as a concern?
Something that we're seeing right now is an increase in IV hydration and therapy. This is a case type that is newer to investigations, and because of the newness of this industry, the Board of Registered Nursing participates in the IV hydration and therapy. We call it MSIV for short. The task force with multiple healing arts boards and a few non-healing arts boards, because we have found that some of these medical professionals will set up a mobile shop at a hair salon or a chiropractor's office, and then administer IVs with a different cocktail of vitamins. So that's something new that we're looking into right now. They're common in the medical spa setting as well. So with injections, you will also see services for IV wellness, IV hydration, IV therapy. So that's something to be aware of.
Good. Okay. Interesting. That's helpful. I mean, I guess, it's really part of the public's awareness now. You see, athletes talk about this, and I bet, that, people aren't necessarily aware of the fact that it's a medical procedure, and, that nurses need to be trained and supervised in it. So, okay. Thanks for that. Appreciate it.
Welcome.
So Alice, Board Member Cormack, I'll jump in really quick just to kind of further clarify with that. With the med spa IV clinics, they are legal and something that California can support. The issue that comes is with the the medication, or it's not viewed as medication a lot of times by the public. They're just saying it's just an IV with some vitamins in it. That is considered medication administration. RNs can do medication administration. What RNs cannot do is compound medication. And that is an area that we need to educate all of our nurses on. So as part of that task force, we are working on educational material to go out, that will go out social media, it will go out by email blast as well. And we're going to get this information out to our nursing programs, both pre-licensure as well as our advanced practice RN programs, so that they understand this. In order to compound, that can only be done by two types of licensees: your physician and surgeon or your pharmacist. A pharmacy technician can assist in a compound pharmacy location with supervision, but RNs cannot do this. What RNs get confused with on a regular basis is they say, all I'm doing is pulling up the vials and administering it. I'm able to administer. They're able to administer medication as it is labeled. As soon as they pull that medication or vitamin or whatever kind of cocktail they're making and inject it into a sterile IV bag, it is compounding. And that is something that they are not allowed to do. And most of our RNs do not have an awareness of where that line stops within their scope of practice. They are very familiar with pulling up and administering medications. That's fine. They cannot legally compound, and that definition is what is confusing to them. So we are addressing that. We're working on that, several different ways that we're trying to address that. So I just wanted to give you guys a heads up on that.
Can I just make a quick
Yeah,
follow-up
go
on
for it.
that, EO Melody? I wonder, is there a continuing education class that could be highlighted about like do's and don'ts, or I don't know.
There
I'm just
are
trying to think of,
yeah,
Yeah.
there's not a silver bullet for this at all. And for us to recommend a continuing education class over providers that we review and approve and supervise would be a conflict of interest. So we cannot do that. And BRN themselves we do not have or possess a continuing education license for ourselves. So really the avenue that we have is really working within our nursing programs. That's going to be the most proactive, is if we get our pre-licensure programs as well as our advanced practice RN programs to be very clear on what compounding is versus admixing, be very clear on what an RN scope of practice is so that they're prepared when they go out there. That will start that process. We will also be updating our website to include information on compounding, what that is, why you cannot do that, what our law is that forbids it, and working with the med board, working with osteopathic, PA board, etc., just to get that information out. What also becomes a problem within investigations is, with our med spas, if a person was running a med spa and administering Botox without a physician present, that's something that we can do on investigations. We go in there, we see it happen, and we're able to do that. Compounding is done behind doors and in locked rooms, in med rooms, etc., in clean environments. And so that's not always out there for public view. So even patients, public that are getting and using these services, they're not aware of the potential legal activities that are happening in violation of the scope of practice at the places themselves. And so that's the problem that we're trying to address. Many of our nurses, again, just don't have the awareness of what compounding is, and they are compounding not to directly violate on purpose because they're being malicious, but because they just don't understand that what they're doing is against their scope of practice.
Thank you. Thank you, Lori. Any other? Go ahead.
Yeah, the one other point of clarification, the question was put on is, do we believe that this growth in enforcement investigation cases will continue? Absolutely, yes. Just even if you look at the percentage where we say, hey, we're consistent at 1% across the time and we don't see that growing, our licensed population is growing exponentially. Therefore, that 1% will, in numbers, increase. We've gone from the 2026 audit where we had 20 cases, sorry, not patients, assigned to investigators to 30. And even at 30, which is maxed out our investigators who are screaming and just really kind of letting us know that this is a difficult number for them to maintain, we're still increasing our numbers waiting to be assigned. So that is an issue. We are very much aware of it. All hands are on deck and we're desperately trying to work through that, but we don't see an end in sight. We do believe that these numbers will increase. We do believe that more cases will end up pending assignment, and we do need to solve this quickly.
Thank you very much, Lori. Any other questions from committee members? Okay, please keep in mind that this is, David, did you have a question? Sorry.
Well, it's been asked before, but just to clarify again, Lori, does that also still mean there is no solution for increasing capacity of our investigators so that we have more people with 30 cases each? That's correct.
There are different ways that we can address it. It all depends on a very complicated state system that I'm from private sector. I'm used to saying I need a person and I go in and hire them as long as I have the money to pay for them. That's not the state process. There are things that we can do within the state process where we can look at vacant positions that we have position authority, that we have the financial ability to support, and we can do a temporary reassignment. We can, but that's truly taking from one high need area of our board and putting into another high need area of our board. It doesn't solve the problem. So the process that is left for the state entities to do is called a budget change proposal. That is a legislative process, and so we have to go through that process. And if on that process it is decided that we get more staff and more money to be able to support that staff, then that is decided at that point. So there are processes within state service that are being explored, but they're not directly in the control of BRN, as you would imagine with the public sector. Ability is where I can just identify the need and go out and hire. That's not the process that we have with states. So we have to follow the processes that are allowed and supported.
I understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
David, I appreciate you bringing this up every committee meeting. It's
Well,
important.
I will say, I'm curious. I wonder, I literally don't know what the consequence may be down the line if people waiting, because I don't know what the final process is with cases that are on the waiting list to be investigated, can't be yet because we're out of room for them. Other than it taking an extra year and time being lost, I'm curious what the consequence would be. If I was a lobbyist, how would I sell that? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's where it's a difficult conversation to have. These cases, so when we get a complaint, we have to look at all complaints. Some complaints contain a great public risk. Other complaints do not contain a great public risk. Both of them need to be investigated and managed. Until that investigation is complete, it's innocent until proven guilty. I don't know another way to explain that. And Reza, please jump in if at any point I'm saying something that I should not be saying. So we don't know the outcome until the investigation is complete, but we do know what the complaint is. Based on that complaint that goes through that triaging process that's been discussed, right? So if that complaint holds a higher risk of public protection, those go to Department of Investigations. They that's where they go. So that's on that prioritization list. If that complaint doesn't reach the threshold to go to DFI, that is part of that triage and it does get addressed. But again, while the investigation is going on, we are not able to take action on the licensee. We do have the ability to do interim suspension orders, PC-23s. Those come when it's egregious and it comes through criminal activity and stuff like that. And Shannon's really great at explaining that if she wants to explain that better. So it's not like there are people out here that are continuing to harm while we investigate for the most part. There is always a risk of that though, which is why the focus on getting this addressed, the focus on getting this worked out is the number one priority for the BRN at this point. And Shannon, Nicole, Reza, if there's anything that I missed or didn't state clearly, please feel free to jump in and redirect.
Would anybody like to jump in?
Sure, this is Nicole Bowles, Deputy Chief of Investigations. I just wanted to state that the investigators that we have working on these cases are working very diligently because they have a passion for consumer protection. We don't have a very high turnover rate in investigations. These folks are dedicated to their jobs and they understand what's at stake here with the public protection. So while we would love to have some additional resources, because I do hear from my staff that their 30 caseloads are really high, they experience burnout, they're still showing up to work to do the work for the public. So I just wanted to make that statement because I think sometimes it gets lost when we talk about needing more resources and, you know, having a high caseload that I don't acknowledge. I don't get the opportunity all the time to acknowledge the staff that are working really hard to address the cases that we have, and they understand the magnitude of the environment that we're in.
Thank you very much, Nicole. I appreciate that. Well, David, you asked the question much more directly than I did when I said, how much longer do we think the supervisors and chief deputy are going to be working these cases? But you went for the jugular, so good for you. I think we do need to keep making that point.
And I do appreciate all the work they're doing. Nothing against them, but they are outnumbered, they're outmanned, and they will be long after we're gone if we don't get more people to help.
Thank
So
you.
I feel bad for them. I feel for them.
Okay. So this is information only again, so we are not going to make a motion at this time. So I would ask the board moderator to please take us to public comment on item number 5.
We will be opening for public comment now. Please refer to the screen share for members of the public to see how they should type in their request for comment. I've activated the question and answer feature. Members of the public can indicate that they would like to make a comment by typing into the question box, "I would like to make a comment." Please remember you'll have 2 minutes to make your comments. I would like to give a reminder as your time approaches. I do not want to interrupt you nor cause you to lose your train of thought. I will mute your microphone and inform you that your time has expired and we'll move on to the next member of the public. I'll pause for a moment for members of the public to type in, "I would like to make a comment." Committee Chair Wynn, there are no public requests for comments on the WebEx. We have no in-person representation in BRN HQ. Would you like me to close this window?
Yes, please, and thank you very much. Okay, so that concludes the discussion on item number 5. We will move to item number 6, which is again information only, and this is the intervention program updates. So Shannon, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Again, Shannon Johnson, I'm the board's enforcement division chief, and I will be reviewing agenda item 6.0, the intervention program update. And so, as you know, management, we've been attending all of the IEC meetings. We're still attending all IEC meetings to educate and support the members. Our EO, Lori, she has been attending open session of all of the IEC meetings as of August 26th and has attended now 5 of our IECs to also educate the members related to the intervention program and the role of the board and its committee. At the February 28, 2024 meeting, the board voted to allow us to begin work on regulatory language, which unfortunately we're not where I would like to be, but we will be working on that. The new intervention vendor, Premier Health Group, continue to work with all of the DCA boards. We're now having monthly meetings, all 8 boards with Premier Health Group. As of the last couple months, and just helping transition into that role over the programs. We continue to recruit IEC members, and we will be bringing forward some possible IEC applicants to the board meeting next month that the subcommittee had reviewed. So we'll be bringing them forward for possible appointment next month. And historically, so at a previous meeting, the board also approved us to possibly open up to 4 IECs, which would mean we would have to recruit some more IEC members. We would have to go through orientations and training and then intermingle them within already existing IECs, as opposed to putting, brand new members, all 5 of them brand new in the same IEC. So we came up with an idea to possibly just add additional meetings to our calendar of IEC meetings. Typically, we would have 4 per year. So in 2026, we're going to try doing 6 per year per IEC. Allowing more meetings every other month gives an opportunity for participants to be seen more frequently or in some emergency type situations to see if maybe we can fill that need that we have maybe in this manner as opposed to the huge recruitment effort and all of that. So we're going to try that and see how it works out. If not, I'll be coming back before you again to just, maybe open up, well, we've already had the approval to open up, but to recruit additional IEC members. So that's where we are with that. And then there's some statistics at the end of this agenda item for the last few fiscal years. Are there any questions on any of that? I know Lori's going to do her presentation next on what she's been doing with the program.
Thanks very much, Shannon. I'll always appreciate your updates. On table A, on page, I think it's 41, the intakes have dropped. Well, I mean, they dropped dramatically from 2021-22 to 2022-23, but are people afraid to go into this program at this point? It just seems like fewer people are participating.
I don't know if they're afraid to go into the program. I mean, there's a lot of factors. Either first and foremost, they just don't even know about the program. So there's a lack of education that the board even has a program like this. I hear it all the time. Oh, wow, I wasn't even aware the board had a program. Okay. So there's that. I mean, that's first and foremost. Secondly, it's a cost issue. If this program is saying, you need to stop working, that's an impact. That's an impact to their household, their family, their livelihood, and that's huge. So that's another issue, is just the financial burden of not working, not only not working, but then having to, pay for treatment, having to pay for therapy, having to pay for testing, having to pay for nurse support group. All of those things add up, and it's not easy. It's not an easy program when you look at all of those aspects of it.
The other line in that table that was kind of surprising to me was the RNs referred. So again, it started at 1,000 and now we're up to almost 2,700. How could you explain to me what that is? Yeah.
So previously, years ago, what we would do is any complaint that came in that was associated with possible mental health or drug alcohol addiction, we would send them notice of the program. And so we decided we're not touching enough people. Maybe we need to just make it an overall outreach piece and just send it out to every single person in where we receive a complaint. So it's then up to them. So so if you look at the number of complaints we receive, that's how many outreach pieces we're sending out
Okay.
every single month. So we're looking at 700-800 on average per month that we're now sending out. So it's increasing. So that's why the numbers have increased. We're now and that's only pieces of paper though. And so, as you know, when we're looking at our emails or we're looking at the mail that comes in, if it looks like junk mail, we don't pay much attention. So I think that's one piece of it. We still have to really address our outreach.
Thank you very much. How about other committee members? Any questions on this item?
I'll go, Chair
Yeah,
Wynn.
please.
Thank you. This is Board Member Cormack. Ms. Johnson, I'm just thinking from a top level. Now we've had Premier on board for nine months now, 9 months and change. Can you just share with us sort of top level, one thing that you think is going really well with Premier, and then one area, where there's still some work to be done? And what I want to take a moment to do is acknowledge that so far we haven't had any public comment. And that was a method that we used for a couple of years to figure out there's a big problem. But I don't want our, oversight, for lack of another word, to disappear just because people aren't currently calling in. So what's one thing Premier's doing well, and what's one thing that, they're working on, just so we're aware of how the program's doing?
I will start by saying I hope they're listening, but I'll start by saying their clinical case managers and their compliance monitors have been wonderful. They're very receptive. Jaspreet, the deputy chief, and we have meetings 2 times, sometimes 3 times a week with them. They're very open to our suggestions, and so that part has been nice to have a partner that's willing to work with us and listen and kind of follow through on some of those things. So we've been working very well with the clinical case managers and the compliance monitors. Some of the areas that maybe aren't going so well or that needs improvement, we still don't have a platform for a portal for participants to access, for our IEC members to access. That makes it difficult. So before each of the IEC meetings, we're spending a lot of time preparing packets and documents for each of the IEC members for every participant that's going to be seen for that meeting, as opposed to them being able to have a portal that they could go into, a website that they could access with all of that information. And again, we have to create, secure links in order to send those packets across to them. So we have to get IT involved. So it's very time consuming. So that's one thing I think that would make a huge, huge difference for us, being 10 months in and still not having that platform or portal for everyone to access. We are just now in the midst of trying to test it to determine if it's ready for an IEC member to access it, what permissions they have and so forth, and what can be done under that administrative sign-in for an IEC member. So that's where we are with that right now.
Super helpful. Thank you so much. Really, really good to hear at the top level that the people who are working with the nurses who are participants, are doing a great job. And also to know that there's, some structural solutions that will make it better for everyone. So thanks very much for that.
And then to jump in, Board Member Cormack, I just want to make sure that the board does not lose sight of this. Public comment is one way for the public to come in and let you guys know, but we do receive comments in other methods as well. And so we do still occasionally get some comments about responsiveness that some intervention participants are reaching out and they're not getting a call back in what they believe is timely. So, you know, as expected, these are growing pains as we transition to a brand new vendor that has not had a program like this before, who is only 10 months in from a vendor that's had it for 40 years prior to that. And so they need to staff up, they need to develop the infrastructure to support that. And they're working really diligently to do that. But I want to make sure that even though we're not hearing it in public comment, it might just be because it's not at the level that the board, they feel that the board needs to know, but we are still receiving some comments on our intervention program, and more so, also receiving comments on the probation program as well. So we are continuing to work with that, and we're continuing management, and Shannon and her staff have all been great, really working towards everything, trying to get everything addressed, really with an eye on how they can be better and we can be better to serve them, because we really want our programs to be successful and to do what they're supposed to do. And that's with helping people not lose their license, but maintain a license and return to work in a safe manner.
Well, I just want to follow up on that because it actually is working as intended. If participants and probationers feel comfortable reaching out to you and the other members of the staff with their questions, that's what we want. In some weird way, I'm glad that they're still doing that. I'm sorry that there are problems that they're bringing to your attention, but that's a much more efficient and effective method to make change. So doesn't mean they can't call in. We're always willing to hear from them.
Agree. I just wanted to make sure that it was very transparent that just because it's not coming here, we are still hearing stuff, we are still addressing. And I mean, that's really what got us here to begin with, is when Shannon came in and there was new life brought to that unit, she really just started going through section by section by section, what is needs to be addressed, what needs to be improved. And that is really where, you know, Jaspreet, Yvonne, and Shannon have been key in looking at that. Same as, you know, Nicole coming into her position, she went in and she just methodically has gone through investigations to see what can be done to improve there as well. So that entire side, and the reason I say side is our org chart is in two pieces, right? Because it is massive. So we have kind of this licensing org chart, we have an enforcement investigations org chart. So that entire side of enforcement investigations has just been process improvement over and over and over again for the past few years. And I don't know that that's highlighted as much as we do, because we get a lot of reach out and complaints and inquiries about licensing. So we're always talking about licensing. I just want to make sure everybody understands that enforcement and investigations is right on top of it, working really diligently, trying to address everything that is brought to them. And sometimes it's so rapid fire that it just gets overwhelming. So they're great and they're on it.
Thank you both for that. Any other questions? Okay, hearing none. We will go ahead. This is information only. We're not waiting for a motion. So we'll go ahead and open it up for public comment.
We will be opening for public comment now. Please refer to the screen share for members of the public to see how they should type in the request for comment. I've activated the question and answer feature. Members of the public can indicate they would like to make a comment by typing into the question box, "I would like to make a comment." Please remember you will have 2 minutes to make your comments. I would like to give a reminder as your time approaches. I do not want to interrupt you nor cause you to lose your train of thought. I will mute your microphone and inform you that your time has expired, and we'll move on to the next member of the public. I'll pause for a moment for members of the public to type in, "I would like to make a comment." Kay would like to make a comment. 1 second, please.
Hi there. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much. I just wanted to see if I could get any clarification on an email that was sent out to participants in the intervention program requesting some pretty sensitive PHI, our health insurance information, the type of health insurance we have, as well as our group ID number or member ID number for our health insurance. The email came from Premier stating that they needed it, as well as the BRN needed it. And the email did not explicitly say it was optional or mandatory, but it came across as being very mandatory to release that information. I happened to ask further questions and found out it was optional, but I just know if I was brand new to the program, I would automatically assume it was mandatory and just hand that right over. So there wasn't a ton of explanation given as to why that was being requested or that it was optional. And I just want to know if there's any follow-up with that.
Shannon, are you able to address that? Is that something that you were aware of? That is something I was not aware of.
I'll go ahead and address it. We are not aware of that. I'm not aware of that at all, but it is something that we will look into after this meeting. Thank you.
I do have an understanding, I believe, that Representative Premier is in public as an attendee. If they are willing to be elevated, I would love to see if they are able to address that. Board moderator, can you elevate Dale Osborne out of the attendees and see if she is able to address that? She may not be able to, but I just want to give them an opportunity since it was a Premier based notice. Dale, are you able to come off mute? I do understand that you are not prepared for this and may not be available, but I wanted to give you an opportunity.
Hello. Yes, I'm just sort of figuring out the technology over here. I've been
Not a
present
problem.
for the majority of our conversation about the intervention program and am happy to address the public comment regarding health insurance information. It is not mandatory, and so the email template that you received will be reviewed by myself to ensure that the language reflects that. This was something that was communicated to me by upper executive management amongst my team as twofold, as two different purposes. One is that at times when we assess participants, they may at some point be in imminent and urgent need of treatment. And at such time, they may not be functioning well enough or communicative enough with us to really assist us in getting them referrals to the treatment that they might need. So having that on file and available to us in the event that imminent treatment may be necessary for one of our participants is beneficial. The other data that we wanted to look at is what percentage of our participants actually have health insurance, right? Because, you know, when we're removed from practice, that may or may not be something that we have access to anymore. And it's really important financial information for us to have. As noted earlier in the discussion of the intervention program, one of the significant barriers to enrollment is the financial burden associated with engagement in the program, which we've been looking at and trying to reduce. There's several ideas that have been kind of discussed. If we have an understanding of the percentage of our participants who actually have health insurance, it really helps us understand whether this program is something that can help facilitate the treatment and rehabilitation of the individuals who are in need of our services, and help us identify potential areas of improvement or problems that our participants might encounter that they need our assistance and problem solving with. So I hope that adequately addresses that comment.
You nailed it, Dale. Thank you. So appreciate that. You were completely not prepared and you really stepped up to that. Can you do me one favor and just introduce yourself and let them know your role at Premier, since this is the first time board is meeting you and our public is meeting you?
Yes, of course. My name is Dale Osborne and I am the program manager over here at Premier Health Group.
Thank you. Board members, did you have any questions for Dale before I let her kind of drop back off and go incognito again?
I don't, thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much, Dale, and thank you for being present. Board moderator, do we have any more public comment?
Thank you for your comment. We do. Hold on. Let me get back there. Chris Else would like to make a comment. 1 second, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just want to thank you for all being here. I've been very critical of some of the board and some of the decisions that they've made in the past. And I'd like to say I'm happy to say something good about the Premier program. I think they've been very streamlined for my nurses I'm sorry, I'm a nurse support group facilitator if you guys don't recognize me. They've been very streamlined for my nurses. They've had fewer complaints, fewer questions, I think, for since Maximus is no longer there and it's Premier. They seem their contracts are much more readable and shorter and much easier to interact with. Unfortunately, like Shannon was talking about was referrals. I haven't really had that many new referrals into that program this year. So hopefully it's reflecting on the probation program and people are going back and forth. I do love her idea of outreach and sending more information of the diversion program out to nurses once they have a problem. And and that, because I don't know what a lot of my nurses that come in probation, they got it too late or didn't know about it exactly like she says. So I was very excited to hear she's up on that. So and the only concerns I had about Premier is when she stated was the portal. It'd be much easier once they get that open for my nurses and myself to do reports. For Premier, it's much easier. So I just want to thank everyone. You've heard from me in the past. I've been critical. It's been 9 months into the Premier program, and my nurses and myself have kind of gone with them. So I think you guys have done a good job and picking them. And I was kind of critical about Maximus. I thought that was the end of the world a little bit, and we were going to something else. And you guys did a good job. Thank you, Shannon and Dale. If that's your new position, thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Committee Chair Nguyen, there are no other public requests for comments on the WebEx. We have no in-person representation in BRN HQ. Would you like me to close this window?
Yes, please, and thanks very much. Okay, so this concludes item number 6. We'll now move to item number 7. Again, an information only item, and it's the presentation by our executive officer regarding the cases affected by the motion at the August 2024 board meeting. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Lori, and thank you.
Thank you. Now I'm desperately trying to pull up a document that my computer closed on me. So give me 1 second here so I can get that up. Okay, perfect. So just want to give in a great update. When this process started in August of last year, the very first board meeting in November, there was 22 reviews sent to me to say, is there adequate information to support this? Can they continue to move forward, or does it need to go back to IEC to really obtain that data to support the recommendation? We are now sitting at 57 total. That's not 57 new. That is just 57 total, greater than the 22 that we started, and we've been at this a year. I completely anticipate when we come to the November board meeting to be able to share that we've only had one review that was sent to the EO to be looked at since the last board meeting. So that's, board meetings are every 3 months, right? So when we went from the November board meeting when this started, we had 22 sent to me. In February, we had 8 sent to me. In May, we had 15. In August, I had 11. But I fully anticipate going into November as 1. I don't see that growing. We do have quite a few IECs that are coming forward to be scheduled still, but with the education outreach that we've been putting out there with the team just continuing to work with IECs and Premier and et cetera, I think the process is much, much improved. I do want to share that, and it was on the prior overall enforcement update, the intervention update on page 40, is that initial education in the individual IECs have been started, and they do plan to keep that as an ongoing process that happens in open session. in August 26th at the IEC 3 meeting, the presentation occurred. At that point, I asked for it to be recorded, and I asked for IEC open session to be treated as the same as the rest of our advisory committees, and to be updated and added to our website. So materials are up for each of the IECs for open session. Again, closed session is completely confidential and protected, and that will not be shared out publicly. And the recordings of open session is up there as well and on our website. That did just start at the end of August, and we do plan to continue that. I have been able to provide education to IEC number 3, 12, 10, 4, and 1. That is just about half of what we have. So that's 5 and we have 9. So I do anticipate by the November board meeting to have been able to provide education to all of the IECs and actually go back to IEC number 3 before the board meeting and be able to give you guys an update. IEC number 3 being the first presentation, I don't think that it went as well as I expected it to, and it caught me a little bit off guard. But I'm happy to report that IEC 12, 10, 4, and 1 went just as expected. The members seem to be fairly supportive and understanding of the board's ask. And I think that's reflective in the numbers and such that are coming here. So in November, I will be able to report out to the board that all IECs have had the education on the board's ask on the direct patient care requirement, as well as the narcotic passing requirement, and having evidence to support any of the extensions beyond 3 years, and then just continuing to do that on an ongoing basis. Additionally, I want to be completely transparent. A couple of the IEC recommendations that came to me, I was not able to get to in a timely manner. I fully expected that to happen, but I have to admit that. And so there was some delays with me on those IEC reviews. In absent of me reviewing, the program manager, Jess Breet, stepped up, reviewed those, and appropriately returned them back to IEC to get the evidence. And so I fully anticipate after the November board meeting to be my next ask, after we've done this a year, for February, for me to step out of the review process altogether and hand that over to the program manager, as that is effectively where that lays. I would ask at that, and just kind of putting this out there, that I would continue to do kind of like some audits or some spot checks just to ensure that that drift doesn't happen again in the future. But I truly believe that my time in doing these reviews are coming to an end. So I would like just to kind of put that in the back of your mind as you guys look at this. And I think we're on a really positive point in BRN with it, having this brought to us, having us work through the issues, and now having a clear path forward. I did also want to really recognize that the Assistant Executive Officer, Yvonne Leonard Taps, who had previously been in all of the meetings, has been able to step back as well. And so she is no longer in the IEC meetings, and those are continuing to be ran by board staff with Shannon Johnson and Jess Breet taking turns and managing that from an executive level role. So overall, really some positive things. The AEO is now not having to go into the IECs. I believe that I'll be able to pass this over, and I'll be asking for that to occur at the February board meeting, that it goes back to the probation manager. All in all, these things are making an impact, and it's working well. So good reports all around. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Lori, so much. You were busy before we asked you to take this on, and I just have really appreciated the spirit in which you have undertaken this work, and it clearly has been a lot of work, but I do think that we're in a better position at this point, and I'm glad to hear that you're thinking of at some point of stepping out and putting it back on the program director where it belongs. So thank you for that. Are there any questions from committee staff and committee members of our executive officer.
This is Board Member Cormack.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Nguyen. Yeah, I was really hoping that that was going to be part of the topic today, is when does this, extraordinary response to the extraordinary situation end? And it sounds like it's already tapering. So thanks for the data that, there's only going to be one, in the current quarter, and, that the program manager was able to step in for you on an as needed basis. All of that's really reassuring. From my standpoint, if you wanted to speed that up and have it be at our November meeting instead of February, I don't see any problem with that. But of course, leave it to your best judgment there.
The reason that I was going to February is because we have holidays coming up, and I don't want to add any additional things as staff might be wanting to take off work. So Jaspreet's been amazing.
Keep in mind that you're part of the staff, and holidays also happen for you. So I'm not going to let that one go quite that quickly.
So I will consider that. Yes, I do think that November will be a full year. I think that's great timing, but I do want to be mindful of staff and let them know that I'm here to support them so that they can be prepared. And a lot of times in state service, we do things at the beginning of the next calendar year as well to start and implement new processing for tracking. But I'm totally willing to consider that for November. I know I would love that, but I wanted to be.
I'm a vote for speeding that part of the process up.
Perfect. We'll do that. We'll add that to the board agenda.
You, Mr. Lawler, any questions? Yeah, please go ahead.
Not a question, just a comment. I also want to acknowledge how grateful I am for the work you've done on this, and I agree with Allison to speed it up. I'm all for that.
Okay, so keeping in mind that this is information only, we're not expecting a motion, so I'm going to ask the board moderator to take us to public comment.
We will be opening for public comment now. Please refer to the screen share for members of the public to see how they should type in the request for comment. I've activated the question and answer feature. Members of the public can indicate they would like to make a comment by typing into the question box, "I would like to make a comment." Please remember you will have 2 minutes to make your comments. I will not give a reminder as your time approaches. I do not want to interrupt you nor cause you to lose your train of thought. I will mute your microphone and inform you that your time has expired, and we'll move on to the next member of the public. I'll pause for a moment for members of the public to type in, "I would like to make a comment." Chris Else would like to make a comment. 1 second, please.
Hello all again. I just would like to thank Loretta Melby for doing such a good job, because obviously we don't have a lot of people in here making comments and complaints, and my nurses seem a lot happier. I asked a year ago that the board have a lighter hand with nurses, especially involving this issue, and it sounds like it's working well. Thank you very much. I appreciate all your time in looking into this. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Committee Chair Nguyen, there are no other public requests for comments on the WebEx. We have no in-person representation in BRN HQ. Would you like me to close this window? Oh,
yes,
and somebody snuck in. Wait. Somebody snuck in.
Someone snuck in. Okay.
Let me see if N wants to talk first. N, no name. If not, no name. Would you like to speak?
I'm showing that that person is still muted. Are they able to come off mute?
I sent the request and maybe they don't want to, but they typed their comment in there.
I'm not able to see the comment on my view. Are you able to?
I can read it if you'd like.
Yeah, I don't have it on my view.
I respectfully request that the board reevaluate the current protocol for publicly displaying the names of nurses under investigation on the monthly list of pleadings. The existing practice has resulted in persistent solicitation from legal representatives, which can be disruptive.
Thank you for reading that, Trish. We'll take that into consideration. Board moderator, are you able to copy that comment and email it to me and legal counsel, please, so that we can look into that process?
Sure.
We
Actually,
can look into it. This is Reza. We can look into it. I just did for now want to mention in response to that. I do understand what the individual is speaking about. First, just a quick clarification. The lists are of individuals who an accusation has been filed against. So they're, it's technically after the investigation has been complete and the board has filed an accusation. The reason I make that distinction is up until an accusation is filed, we keep our complaints and investigations and everything confidential. So somebody who's really truly in the investigative stage, we wouldn't disclose their identity publicly. But once an accusation is filed, that information is public. And the reason that those lists are posted on the BRN website is that information is public under statutory law. The Public Records Act makes all of that information public. And if we didn't put those lists on the board's website, we would still get requests from attorneys who said, give me a list of all of the pleadings that you filed this month. And those would come in every month. So that we couldn't withhold those documents from those attorneys who are seeking them. It just saves us the kind of inevitable step of getting that request from them and then having to fulfill the request. I do understand the solicitation by those law firms is probably, I don't know, but I would assume it's annoying, maybe overwhelming. As I said, we will look into it as Lori promised, but that's kind of my initial response to that is it's public record and there's probably not much we can do about it, even if we did take those lists off of the website. It's a practice that other boards besides the Board of Nursing also, post similar lists. So it's not just us. But thank you for the comment.
And it would be posted on their license lookup anyways. So it's not removing it from from our internet at all. It's still there. It's just in one specific location.
thank you for your comment. Okay, now we are clear, Committee Chair Wynn. Would you like to close this window?
Yes, please. And thank you very much for your help. So it's 2:30. We have one item left.
Trish, can I say one other thing real quick?
Yes.
Just following up on what I was just saying and the comment that was made about, attorneys inundating folks with these letters. As I said, there's probably not too much the board can do to stop that in the first place, but if you're getting correspondence from law firms that seems misleading or seems to be making statements that are seeming to be inappropriate, you can follow up with the State Bar of California. There are, pretty strict rules about attorney advertisement. They can advertise, but there are regulations surrounding that. So if you're getting stuff that seems, outlandish or seems to be inappropriate, the State Bar is who you'd want to follow up with. We don't see that stuff. So, and we don't, the best we could do is refer it to the State Bar ourselves. So we don't have any regulation over licensee councils or anything like that. So that's why I wanted to just mention that. We don't know how outlandish those letters might be, and if they are, the State Bar would take care of that.
Thank you, Reza. Okay, Lori, I'd like to propose a 10-minute break, and then we'll going to the next item?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could even make 15 if you want to and come back at 2:45. Like it's completely up to you guys. David got a thumbs up on that one.
Okay, let's take 15 minutes. And
Sounds
then
great.
I would only just say this presentation looks very similar to the very long detailed presentation we had at our last board meeting. So I just hope that the presenters will keep in mind that we have read this and we have already heard the presentation and allow more room for conversation. So, okay, we'll be back
Correct. Thank you.
at 2:45.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Tricia, looks like everybody is back on. If you want to do roll call real quick.
Good. Okay, we'll go ahead and establish a quorum from the break and we'll move on to item number 8. So Chair Wynn, present. Committee member Cormack,
Cormac, present.
committee member Lawler.
Lawler present.
Great. Okay, we have a quorum. So we'll move to item number 8, which is discussion and possible action, a presentation by Birchwood Solutions.
We actually do need to elevate the presenter, Elizabeth Temple. Board moderator, could you elevate her, please? Thank you. Elizabeth, are you able to come off mute and come on video as well? We can't hear you. We can't see you. It looks like you're still muted.
I'm going to try
There you
that
go.
again. Okay, good.
Yes.
It took a second. Okay, perfect. Well, thank you all very much. I know you've had a long day of meetings, and I do appreciate Ms. Wynn for giving me a quick update on already having heard the presentation. That, so I do appreciate that. I would like to start with just a very quick overview, and then we'll jump right into questions if that's okay. Just as a refresher, I think that would be helpful. So let me attempt the sharing here. You'll have to pardon me. This is my first time using the system, so I want to make sure I'm getting the right one. Here we go. Perfect. Okay, so can you see?
Yes.
See if I can present it. Okay, perfect. All right, so again, thank you all for the opportunity to be here today and to talk to you about our support group management service through everything, and I'm certainly not going to off the screen, but I did want to briefly just touch base a little bit about how we got started and what we do. So our support group management services, this is a very quick way to just summarize what we do. So we do provide professionally facilitated support groups for nurses in recovery. And one of the things that sets us aside from other programs or other processes is how we really collaborate and manage the entire support group process with the board and the alternative side of the program. So depending on how different programs are structured. And so when we come in to work with an organization, there is an onboarding process that is extremely detailed. That's a little bit later into the slide. But what we aim to do is to really get a very good idea of how you're structured, what your areas of strength are, what your areas of challenges are, and then we work to tailor an actual support group management product for your board and for your participants in the board. And it came about in 2011 when we started. We wanted to just be considered an option for online support groups, which didn't exist anywhere in the country at that time for alternative programs or board monitoring. And when we piloted the program that we piloted with, which was the state of Tennessee, the Tennessee Professional Assistance Program, they very quickly identified that we had addressed 20 plus years of challenges that they had in trying to manage the support groups themselves. So as a result of that, they asked us to build out a full management service to manage it from start to finish. So it really took the challenges that they were having off of the board, off of the alternative program, and allowed us to be able to manage that piece of the puzzle. So that's how we ended up being a full support group process. So in addition to the facilitated support groups, a big piece of what we do is facilitator compliance and training and education. So when we come in and work with a program, we have the option to for existing facilitators to apply to become contracted facilitators with us. And then we work on getting them trained and bring up them up to speed on what our model is. So there's a lot of facilitator compliance as well as the participant compliance to the piece. So we have an auditing department that will audit all of the interactions, the documentation, make sure that the participants are actively engaged in group, that they are actually in group and participating. And then track all the different intricacies to make sure that we are complying with the program that we have designed for you. So that's part of the data and auditing. Of course, our reporting, we do weekly non-compliance reports. If it's an urgent issue, then we do have a 24-hour reporting protocol, as well as our monthly or quarterly attendance. Different programs want it received differently, different time frames. So we're flexible there. And then we do provide an annual report, so it can be reported back to the board or the oversight. And in that reporting, we also do annual surveys from the participants, because this is a program that they go through. It's a program that is really built for them as well as for the board oversight, because the goal, if we look at the goal, is for them to successfully reenter back into the workplace and have a long-term recovery maintenance, whether it's for mental health or substance use disorder. So we want to get their continual feedback. So we do an annual survey of the participants, as well as once they are completing the program, we ask for an additional exit survey. And all of that data is reported back to the board as well for full transparency. So we tell you, hey, this is what we're doing great. This is what we're evaluating. So I'm going to skip through this a little bit. We briefly touched on that. I do want to bring attention to some existing program challenges, that there is a lack of consistency really in reporting, quality of data, facilitator qualifications and professionalism, and oversight in general. When we come into a program, facilitators are generally, the feedback we receive is we felt we were on an island of our own, and it's so wonderful to now have a community that we can go to and engage with, because they start developing relationships amongst the facilitators in our monthly meetings, and have a place to go to talk about some of the challenges they're having, because being a facilitator is also a very significant commitment, and time commitment, emotional and mental commitment as well. So giving the facilitator the support that they need in order to adequately pour into what they're doing for the participants in the program. And then management of support group process was just time consuming. So it was taking a lot of man hours, right, for the program directors or the staff members to address, personality conflicts. Support groups couldn't meet because somebody was sick, or, reporting and sifting through the data. It's really all just handed over turnkey to the program directors and the case managers for them to do what they need to do to process a case or manage a program. The participant challenges, of course, scheduling changes, cost of gas, time off, childcare, etc. limited group options if they're restricted to just in-person meetings. Maybe they don't have a meeting that's close by, or there's somebody they work with in that meeting, so that might have a little bit of conflict of interest or just conflict in general. Quality of group meetings vary, and of course, what participant feels safe in the group and emotionally to share. And then facilitator challenges, they're responsible for finding a meeting space, little to no support, responsible for collecting fees from the participants, and limited to no coverage options. So they're forced to cancel groups. But some additional items as well that we take into consideration. Privacy is very important to us. So all of our emails that we provide the facilitators, as well as our platform that the participants engage with and the facilitators engage with, are HIPAA compliant, portals and processes. So, that would be a cost that the facilitator without a program like ours would have to bear individually and would be very cost prohibitive for them. So again, I'm going to skip through a lot of this since you all have seen this. We can come back as specific questions. Just to briefly just kind of touch base on these were in-person versus online groups. Kind of a weighted average on what the perceived effectiveness of an online group was, because early on there was a question of, would online even work? Would they feel safe? Would they be able to participate? Would we get the same level of engagement? And actually it stood out that all areas were a positive, more positively perceived by the participant than just an in-person group. Having said that, we can still manage in-person and online groups. The only reason why we are all online right now is because of COVID. We flipped everyone online so that no one missed a group, and nobody has wanted to go back. And all of the programs and directors say we're fine with that. So everybody has remained online. But we do have to continue with an online and an in-person management profile. And here's just saying where 8 out of 10 would, or 8.5 out of 10 would not want to return to local group. And they gave some feedback there. So these were the surveys that we sent out to all of our active participants, just specifically surrounding safety. And again, I'm trying to condense this for you all: professionalism and perceived effectiveness. And so all of those areas were very strongly agreed or agreed for that. And then this right here just shows our attendance compliance. When we first started our full year in 2012, the program was about 84% attendance compliance. And based on a number of things that we've done over the years, we are now at a program average across all programs at 96.7%. It actually has maintained that pretty well. Sometimes like a fraction of a percent up or down, but we are very, very steady in trending our participant attendance compliance. One of the reasons why is because we have a very well-defined makeup process. So if a participant is unable to make a group up, then they can go in and request another group, first with their same facilitator if that is available to them. If it is not, then it will be opened up to additional facilitator groups. But there are very strict guidelines and parameters around how many makeup groups they can have in a certain period of time. And we do track that, and we will lock them out of the ability to do that. So we have a very well-defined and streamlined makeup policy. And when you give people that flexibility, you're just removing some of those barriers because life happens. Our goal is for them to attend a group every single week, not miss 5 and then make 5 up over the summer, right? Because we want that consistency. So there are very clear expectations on that. So briefly to talk about the onboarding, we'll have an implementation meeting with the program and or the board, however you all are designed and set up, would like the hierarchy of, so that we get, yes.
Elizabeth, I'm going to jump in and interrupt you at this point.
Yeah.
I'm going to kind of stop you before going into the implementation process, just
sure.
because I want to make sure that our board members are aware of kind of the process with state service and contracting and all that kind of stuff. So
Okay.
the reason that this is here, we'll have to back it up a bit, is a National Council of State Boards of Nursing discipline meeting. You had done a presentation. Our board staff was there. They were very interested in a lot of the items that your company brings to the table. There were items around compliance that we had never thought of before, and were really just innovative. We brought that immediately to our board for consideration, and then board member Cormack said, why is this at the board? It should go to committee. So we're here and we're at committee, so that we can have more of a discussion, and any kind of additional questions and such that could be asked and answered can be. But I want to make sure that it's very clear that if our board, you guys do want to go forward with a nurse facilitator support company, that it does have to go out for bid, that it does have to go out and through a very public process, go through a bid and evaluation process, that you guys cannot make a vote today that says, I recommend going with Birchwood Solutions, and we can immediately start this, that we do have to go through a very public contracting process and give everybody a chance to come on board. So one of the things that I really wanted to point out with looking at what is out there for us is many times our board and even our board staff are not aware of what kind of tools are out there for us to consider. And so when this was shared at NCSBN, we learned about some of these tools through this company and others. And so just like we're constantly looking for any kind of improvement process on looking at anything that we can do to maybe implement within our BRN kind of staffing structure or contract out to have that assistance, we wanted to be able to bring that here, have a discussion, see if any of these ideas, see if anything around this might be something that we would want to have us start going out for a potential bid in the future to see if this is something. I do know that in attendees, we do have some current support group facilitators. They might have some questions and comments as well. So I want to make sure that our board committee members are aware of that as well, in case they want to open up to public comment before discussion or during discussion as well. And then just a reminder that we did receive an email after the first presentation by Birchwood at a board meeting that shared some concerns, and it was from a nursing support group facilitator, believing that that person was going to be outsourced or something of that nature. And I just want to be very clear that that is not what is occurring here, that we are not doing that. And that we are truly just kind of looking at process improvement, compliance, process improvement as well, and just kind of starting the conversation that if our board does decide that there is an avenue here that we would like to pursue, it would have to go out to a bid, and we could not tailor that bid to choose Birchwood. It would have to be a very broad bid and consider anybody that would be interested if, again, the board decided to do that. If you as the guys, as the committee don't recommend it to the board and the board does not make the decision to do it, then nothing happens. It is completely up to you all to do that. So at that point, Elizabeth, if there's anything more that you want to wrap up, you are perfectly able to. I would not go into implementation and stuff at this point, because really just highlighting your services and what you offer is kind of, and why it's a benefit, which you did, is probably more appropriate for this setting. But if you did have some closing remarks, that would be welcome right now, and then we'll open it back up to the board committee members.
You're muted.
I lost audio on Elizabeth. No, I've lost you completely. And it's not showing a mute or an unmute. It actually just looks like it's gone. It's gone. Oh, hear it again. There you are.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Okay, perfect. um, so there would be a cost for our services, which it is in the slides for the participants. Um, Generally, the way it's structured for our program is there's not a cost for the board or the alternative program. The cost is paid by the participant, and that is in the outline provided to you. So if there would be a contract, it would be a $0 contract unless the board chooses to subsidize a portion of that fee or all of the fee, which they have the right to do that. We do have a very detailed financial assistance program for any participant who does not have the ability to pay for the services. There is an application process, and it is streamlined across the board. And based on their application, they could qualify for financial assistance on our part. But again, the board can also choose to subsidize as well. So I did want to point that out. Some additional components we are very educational focused support group. It is not a place where we will allow participants to come and just complain about the process. There's processing emotions, but then there's also focus on their actual recovery or the reason why they are in the program. So we work with the facilitators to train them and to talk to them about using education, different modes of that in order to engage the participants in the group. It's as well. And then I believe, of course, the vetting and the training of the facilitators and making sure that they are being part of our process. The last piece that I want to focus on, and it also is financial as well, it removes the exchange of money from the participant and the individual facilitator, because the facilitator would become a contracted provider with us. Then we pay the facilitator, all of our facilitators are paid, and the participants would pay us. So there is no longer a financial relationship between the facilitator and the participant, which presents its own challenges as well. So that's the last little piece that I wanted to just kind of touch on. So does anybody, I'm sure you have questions for me, and I'd love to be able to answer those.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for streamlining your process. As I said, I had heard it before and I'd read it carefully, and it's really a very well put together process. I mean, you've thought about a whole bunch of things. Certainly it came to my attention during the earlier months this year that the system we have right now is very inconsistent. There's not uniformity. There's not uniformity with fees or with structure. And I heard that loud and clear. So certainly, I think there is a need to do something. Now, I guess the question is, is this something that we can do internally through regs, where we really create a system that, works for everybody up and down the state? Or is this something that we really ought to, hire a vendor to do? So, I mean, I guess that's more of a question for staff than for you, Ms. Temple. And then I guess the other question is, how many organizations are there out there, that we would be looking at, or is this kind of the only game in town?
So one of the things I just want to kind of point out is currently this might be the only game in town. We wouldn't know, right? So just as an example, Premier Health that we just brought on had never offered a service like they're offering right now for us. And so that was developed for California BRN when they went through the bidding process. So even if there is not a company right now, there may be a company, if we decide to go out to bid, that would be interested in an entrepreneurial kind of way to come in and develop, and then it would make a competitive process for bidding and such. So whether they're the only company now, they may not be the only company that we review. If somebody says, I can do this, and I'm going to show you how I can do this, and that could occur. When we're looking at regs and our statute and stuff, regs have to be based on statute. We have an intervention program. We do have an ability with the intervention program to have a vendor, and that is Premier. And then in our contract with Premier, they contract out for a lot of our drug screening through the intervention process. We hold a contract as well for the drug screening and everything that's provided that with our probation as well as with our investigations. And so it might be the same company, but we do have different contracts that work with that. So this may be something that is addressed in contract with Premier, where Premier finds them as a vendor, because Premier is the one that really kind of monitors the nursing support group facilitators. And that has not been a process 100% done by BRN. But it may also be that we, as the BRN, would want to have the regulatory authority. And so then we would have to develop regs that would then outline what is required, et cetera, knowing that that is not currently in there. We don't have any regulatory requirements for nursing support group facilitators and such. The reason that we use nursing support group facilitators as part of our intervention program is it's evidence-based. And we are in alignment with the NCSBN, substance use disorder, alternative discipline, mental health kind of requirements. And that's why we're in their study for looking at the next steps as well. So could this be something that the board looks at implementing through a contract? Yes, it does answer some of this. Could this be something that would go out through Premier and they would be able to contract outside of the board? That would be something we have to look at within their current contract and what's done. And could we do this through regulations? Possibly as well. So there is not a clear path. We would have to look into that if that is something that our board would want to do. But I can let you know that if the board was trying to take this on themselves, if we were trying to do the services that Birchwood offers, we would not be able to do that with the current structure that we have right now. And so if we were to do something and we'd want to kind of grow this out, it would have to go through a process of getting that aligned, and probably been building out a section within our staff to be able to do that. And we currently do not have the resources for that. So I just wanted to put that out there for you guys.
Thank you very much. I'm going to let other committee members ask questions. And of course, I do want to go to public comment. I just want to put that out there, but of course, I'd like to hear from committee members first.
May I, Chairwoman? This is
Yes,
board member-
please.
Okay, great, thanks. Yeah, I'm happy to have a little bit more time to review this and to have had the slides in advance. Thank you very much to staff and to the company for coming today to share some more information. The reason this was of interest to me when staff first, brought it forward is that we learned when we were going through the intervention process that there were some inconsistencies in the nursing support groups. We also see this in discipline a bit, whether or not the letters of support from nursing group facilitators are descriptive or endorse, for example, early termination of probation. So that's why it caught my attention, is that we want nurses in probation and intervention, no matter where they are in this state, to have similar experiences, similar services, and similar opportunities. So that's why this is of interest to me. Just listening to EO Melby, this is more than a Premier situation, right? I mean, Premier would be just on the intervention side, and we have 4 times as many probationers as we do intervention folks in intervention. I think the standardized reporting is definitely of interest to me from an equity standpoint. So there's the experience part, and then there's the decision-making part that the board has. So, so 2 things. One, again, to the extent you can speak generally, Ms. Temple, what is, I understand, we're not going to talk so much about onboarding, but what is the ongoing training for facilitators? Is there, an annual conference, even if it's virtual? Like, help me understand what that is, because I know we don't have anything like that at the moment.
Yes. Well, and before I answer the question, if I may, you did mention the intervention, the prevention side, and there is the opportunity for us to develop two separate tracks. So they're still, they're the same consistency. The participants would have different meetings. They wouldn't be in the same meeting together if that's something the board wanted. I just wanted to throw that out there as well. In regards to facilitator training, when we first come in, the first 2 years, we ask our facilitators to come to a monthly meeting. We find that it takes, especially a program who's been established for so long, and some of the facilitators may have been part of multiple different processes over the years. We find that consistency in that first 2 years from onboard is very important. What it does is it allows the facilitators, what allows us to have oversight, but it also allows the facilitators to come and ask questions to seek clarification for what our expectations are so that they can go implement them clearly, right? And after that second year, we will evaluate, hey, do we feel everybody's really on a solid plane and to go? Part of that evaluation process is that we do two facilitator evaluations a year. So we'll go into and observe every facilitator for the first 2 years at least twice. And that observation will also give us some data on how they're engaged with participants. We make sure the participants know we are not there for them. We are there to evaluate the facilitator and what the process and the dynamic is. And so that gives us additional information to confirm, yes, we feel like that everybody's on the same board. Now, we don't expect every facilitator to be the same. The point is not to be robotic. The point is to have a core underlying expectation, right? And so every group will have their own different little ecosystem, and they'll have their own dynamics. So we do want to make sure that facilitators and participants understand that we totally and completely respect that as well. Once we determine that, hey, we're good, we will look at reducing that from a monthly facilitator meeting to a quarterly meeting. So we'll meet once a quarter with all the facilitators to continue that education process. So for the first 2 years, it'll be very procedural, go over policies and procedures, go over expectations, all the things that you do kind of up front. After that, once it moves on, we'll start talking about different structures and models. Will encourage facilitators to observe each other as peer reviews. So that might be something we ask them to do. So there's an ongoing list of things, if you will, that we do from those rolling meetings. We have tried annual meetings at very large states. It's hard to get everybody to come to central location in person. So we found that the monthly and then the quarterly are more than sufficient. In addition to, we host our own facilitator support groups. So the facilitators run it themselves, and it's completely optional. A facilitator can choose to come to that support group. We host them twice a month where they can go and receive support themselves. Whether they need personal support, something going on, or professional in their group, they're having some challenges or whatnot, then they can work that as well. So that's really how we model. I hope that answered and provided
It does,
enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just one quick follow-up. So do the two facilitator evaluations each year, does that affect the compensation of the facilitators?
It does not. We have a basic compensation that is twofold. It looks at number of years facilitating with Birchwood, and then number of or the level of education. So if they're a bachelor degree, master's, a doctorate, they'll get a step up for education, as well as step up for the longer they facilitate with us. So it is not based on what they're doing in group per se. I don't reduce compensation, right, for facilitator that gets, has a challenge in group. We work with them. We want them to stay with us because it's an investment, right? Facilitators and their training, that's an investment on our side as well. So we want them to be successful, and we want them to maintain doing groups with us.
And just while we're on compensation, the compensation, and again, I'm saying this in just in a general sense, and this isn't to understand, it's to use it to help us decide, whether or not this is something we want to look at. What is the compensation based on experience, or I'm hosting a group, the number of people who come to my group, and what would the minimum compensation be?
It's a great question. So we actually cap the number of participants to 10 assigned participants in a group.
Right.
So it's based on per group. So if they currently have 50 participants over 5 groups, they get compensated based on each group, which each group meets for 1 hour. And then there is a requirement for them to input documentation on who is present and what there's a little bit of documentation, right? So attendance, participation, how participant is doing in their progress. And so that is just compensated per group, if that makes sense. It's not based on how many people are in a group. And the reason why is because especially with the way that numbers fluctuate, sometimes you can have 4 people in a group, sometimes you can have 10 people in a group, but that facilitator is still going up to that group regardless of how many people are in it. So we want to make sure we protect the integrity of their job security as well.
Great, that was very helpful. I just want to sort of up level for a minute. We get a lot of people telling us that the nursing support group is really a key component of their recovery, and a place that they find one of the most valuable portions of our 2 various programs. So it is, it's important, and that means it could be sensitive. And so we just have to take a little bit of extra due diligence if we decide to make some changes here. I do want to touch a little bit on costs, and I know that some of our participants currently, and actually, let me just double check with EOMLB. Do we have intervention and probation participants in the same NSGs, or are they in different NSGs?
They're in the same.
That's what I thought. Okay. So in some instances, probationers and intervention participants are paying $0 based on the particular facilitator, and in some cases, they're paying more. I'm just struck by the fact that this is so important. And I went back and spent a little bit of time looking at our financials from the last meeting. We have a expected fund balance this year of $95 million, which is 16.7 months of expenses. And we've been on a very good trajectory, and we are on a good trajectory going forward. So I also just did a little bit more math. And if we, using this 1,400 as an estimate, we have 677 probationers. This is from the report earlier this afternoon, 150 in intervention. That's 827 nurses who are participating right now in NSG, which is a weekly thing. And if we covered the cost, that would be 1.2 million. Round numbers. This is just for us to sort of begin thinking about if this is really a cornerstone program for our participants who are, probationers and participants. What would it look like if we made it consistent and free for everyone? So I just did a little bit of thinking about that. And I think there are some benefits. I went back and reread the things that people sent in, NSG facilitators, asking about a survey about whether or not they would stick around if we went to a more formal program as opposed to the more, I'll just call it, the informal program we currently have. I don't mean to suggest that the individual NSG is informal, but the way that it is managed and supervised, which is not really, is definitely informal at this point. So those are the thoughts I have about the importance of it, the fact that we want nurses to have a consistent experience, and that we want to be sure that we're getting consistent information when we make decisions, and that we know that cost is an issue in both of these programs. And if this is one of the most important things, and also the one that's consistent, right? Drug testing, obviously, can be more expensive, the drug and alcohol testing, but that varies by participant, and this doesn't. This is consistent over for each participant and probationer over the time. So sorry to take such a long time period, but I think this is a really interesting opportunity for us. And I look forward to hearing public comment. Thank you, Chair Wynn.
Thank you very
Before we go
much.
to public comment, Board Member Cormack, I want to kind of clarify a couple things really quick. Yes, there are contracts both with probation and with, nursing support group facilitators with probation and intervention. If Premier chose to contract to manage the intervention part, it would not be managed the same way. We would have to have a separate contract for probation. We couldn't get one for both if Premier was going to contract with them to do intervention. So just to put that out there, that even though that we want things similar, if they're going to go through Premier to be brought in to manage those nursing support group facilitators, instead of Premier doing what they are required to do in contract with that, then we would have to look at the impact of that. The next thing with that is just to clarify the statement you made where you said this is consistent between probation and intervention as a cost and a requirement. That is not 100% accurate as well. Excuse me. The use of the recommendation that IECs put forward on how many support group meetings they need to have, whether or not they're in person or online, whether or not they are like AA or NA based, or whether or not their nursing support group is individualized as well. So that is not a consistent also. They do seem to be very, very similar, but it's not a consistent, and we do have some minimum requirements that, again, we try to meet, that is supported by National Council of State Boards of Nursing in their evidence based on how often they should be done, and we are aligning with that so that we can be part of the continued study that's going on, as we have to meet those minimum requirements, and we do. The other aspect I wanted to touch on is the budget. We do have a very healthy fund. We have many months in reserve right now. So it looks like on face value that we have enough money to incorporate this into our current expenditures. Again, in state service and working through that, that's not how that process is done. We are told essentially on an annual, sometimes twice a year, how much money we are allowed to spend, even though we have a lot in our fund. So an example would be we have $20,000, but the state comes back and says you can only spend 10 of that. Well, then I can only spend 10 even if I have 20. That other 20 sits there and I'm not allowed to dip into that. That just sits there. And so there was also a time last year where we had salary savings that was allowing for us to do a lot of kind of strategic things within the BRN, with getting blanket positions and limited term positions, etc. They did a sweep and took that from us, those empty positions. And so all of a sudden the money that we were using for that was then gone. So we did not have access to that money to be able to support that. So if this was something that we were going to take on, if this was something we were going to go out to contract, we would have to have the monies allotted for that to be able to contract and do that. And we would then have to ask in that same process whether or not they would support the board in covering the administrative cost of this. as to not put that on to the individual participant, because we have heard many times that the participant is having a difficult time financially. So just wanted to kind of put that out there, that it's not as clear as we would like it to be sometimes, but it doesn't mean that it's not a process that we can't explore. It just has many kind of layers that we have to get through to get there.
And if I may,
Go ahead.
yeah, thanks. There is another board that I work with that chooses to subsidize a portion. So it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Again, it totally depends on the state, but from our perspective, we're flexible is I guess what I'm trying to convey, that we have done both.
Thank you. Mr. Lawler, do you have any questions?
I do. Thank you for the presentation and thank you for being here today. Before I get into my questions, though, my comment has already been taken. Thank you, Allison, on the cost. And Lori, I understand our situation. I know as a private firm, if we were a private firm, that would be a great selling point, that it costs us nothing and you make the customer pay for the whole thing. But you cannot forget those public comments we heard over and over and over again by dozens and dozens of people. I am more than willing to ask for a creative way to explore a path to have us pay for it, because this isn't the whole intervention cost. This is just one small part of it. And I know I can spend 10 or 12 bucks a week at Starbucks, but I know a lot of these people in these programs, they're not doing that. So that's not realistic. My question though is, I was looking over the presentation earlier and wondering about the types of challenges you mentioned. Program challenges, participant challenges. Is that an assessment from an audit of our specific situation, or is that a general understanding of when you're bringing systems management into a dysfunctional system, this is almost always the case? Or are these our particular problems?
These are not our particular problems. She does not have access
No.
to any of that information.
No.
So her presentation was not reflective of anything that is California based.
Okay.
No matter how much it might closely align. That's when you have that this is based on a fictional character kind of thing come up, just to make sure that everybody knows that it might be similar, but it's not. Yeah.
I was just making sure, because the rubrics that will be designed for our program, based on the issues we had with our former vendor before Premier, never included a flexibility factor for common sense. And I know a lot of systems management protocols work beautifully for companies that build cars and cell phones, but when people are the product, the people are a different situation. And I'm basing it on the public comments we heard and how they were not necessarily considered in general or specifically. That's all. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much, David. And thank you, Allison. Also, I had an entire sheet of paper on the costs. I did decide not to do them because I realized, this is not, we are not really evaluating the Birchwood proposal, but yeah, I think we have to be sensitive to that. So thank you both for bringing that up. Since we have no further committee comments, I'd like to go to public comment.
Thank you. As we're opening up to public comment, Tricia, I do want to make one statement.
Please do.
A lot of our participants are currently incurring a cost. They are currently paying for their nursing support group facilitation as part of their probation and as part of their intervention. So if we were to take that on in a contracted where we cover administrative costs, it could be a benefit. However, there are some that are at a zero cost nursing support group, and that would be an added cost to them if we were not covering it. And so again, to point out what kind of board member Cormack was saying is there is not a consistency, but there are some participants who are paying for nursing support group facilitators. I'm hearing upwards to $80 each time. I don't know that that's accurate because I haven't got an accurate reporting of that. We do have some nursing support group facilitators that refuse to tell us what they charge participants. So that also becomes problematic when you're trying to manage the system like this.
Go ahead and take us to public comment, please.
We will be opening for public comment now. Please refer to the screen share for members of the public to see how they should type in their request for comment. I've activated the question and answer feature. Members of the public can indicate they would like to make a comment by typing into the question box, "I would like to make a comment." Please remember, you will have 2 minutes to make your comments. I will not give reminders as time approaches. I do not want to interrupt you nor cause you to lose your train of thought. I will mute your microphone and inform you that your time has expired, and we'll move on to the next member of the public. I'll pause for a moment for members of the public to type in, "I would like to make a comment." Chris Else would like to make a comment. 1 second, please.
Hello, everyone. Just a few things here. Just had some questions. I didn't really, you guys were talking about cost. You kind of skipped over that in the presentation. I wasn't really sure what the cost going to the individual nurse would be for the meeting. That was kind of a concern to me. I am concerned that there are just different fees that different facilitators charge. I charge nothing. So my nurses would have to pay whatever fee that would be. So I would definitely encourage, like what Mr. Lawler said, to explore how the board could pay for that, or at least have a minimal fee for those nurses. And also just a little concern about the area. I think a lot of the way the groups work here in California is that they're local nurses and community volunteers, and we know the area, we know the recovery community here. A lot of the nurses are looking for jobs and things, and they talk to other nurses that are working in the local community, and usually the facilitator knows a lot about what's going on in the facility, the area, and has a lot of history there. So that is a concern that maybe we could keep those groups, if we did go with someone like that, keep them in an area just like we are now, so nurses can know other nurses in the area and support each other that way. That's one of the things that really helped us with the nurse support groups. I do see that the training is definitely lacking for us facilitators. I've had one training since I've been doing this for 3 years. I kind of run it like the facilitator I was before, or that I was the group I was in before, and he also didn't charge anything, so I kind of follow that. But definitely, it's definitely a lot of evidence that shows that nurses do much better through the nurses support groups. But I do know nurses that have been in other groups, were unhappy with the facilitators, and they don't know that they have choice in what facilitators that they are going to too. Sometimes they're just stuck in that area and they may not like their facilitator. I don't know anyone who's charging $80, but that could be possible. So I think and the other option is, explore more training that is required for us to be facilitators, that could be put together by even a vendor that we need to get accredited through, have a certification to be a facilitator, even through this company. Because I'm not against this at all, because I think this may be in some cases more beneficial for the nurses in the group because they have a little bit more flexibility. They have someone a little bit more 24/7 online support if they needed it, probably more than I would be available. So it does have its good parts and its bad parts. But so far, what the cost would be the main thing, and how much that would, what would the board do with, if they could have that 1.2 million, what could they do differently with training for us support group facilitators with that amount? Could also go for that, and we would help the state instead of sending our money to outside the state for another group that we'd have a little bit more support through the state. So that's all I have to say right now. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Chris. And I'm going to ask you guys not to talk about money at this point, because that would all be worked out in a contracting process if
Okay.
that were to go out to bid. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Committee Chair Wynn, there are no other public requests for comments on the WebEx. We have no in-person representation in BRN HQ. Would you like me to close this window?
Yes, please, and thanks very much, Mark. Well, okay, so we need to decide what we're going to present to the board or ask the board. I mean, at this point, I'm kind of inclined to suggest to staff to, further explore, a possible vendor to help us, make our nurse support groups more consistent, more uniform, and more fair. With a special, attention paid to the consideration of costs, which we'd all like to keep low. What do other committee members think? And of course, Laura, I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Trish?
Yes, go ahead, David.
I really don't have much more to add to that. I agree with you. That's an easy thing to present to the board. Because the first question should be, what need are we trying to meet? So if you explain it as, this is the need, and this is our one way we can meet it. So that's good.
How about you, board member Cormack?
Thanks, Chair Wynn. Yeah, I'm just debating in my mind if we're gonna ask staff to explore, if we want to be a little bit more directive. But I don't, sometimes we ask staff and then they bring it and then we sort of have the whole, thing again. And I guess I'm pausing for a moment, and I'm wondering, what could go wrong? Like if we decided, no, but it's important, right, to think through, like, there's a lot of appeal to this. And what is something that we're not thinking about that we might break or could go wrong? I don't know what those questions are because I'm not close enough to it. So I guess one thing we could, I'm just brainstorming here, right?
Yeah.
One thing we could do is survey the current facilitators, which is a request we have from them. I'm not recommending any of this. I'm just sort of going through all of our options. One is we could survey the current participants, right? I think it's hard to know though if you're in something and what does something else look like. We could try to gather more information from boards who have made the switch to this about, 2 things that went well and 2 things that went wrong, or things they didn't expect, and that might help us make decisions. So just thinking about how to gather a little bit more information to be sure we make a good decision. But
Hey, thank you, Allison, for kind of teeing that up. And so but your comments raised 2 concerns for me. So should we have this brought back to committee rather than the full board so that we can maybe go forward with something? And the other thing that you brought up, which I hadn't really fully grasped, was I'm not crazy about the idea of a 2-track NSG. I'd much rather have, consistency across the board, both for intervention and for probation. And as you said, we have so many more probationers than, intervention participants. You don't want the smaller group to be leading the larger group. So I do think this was a good conversation, a good starting place, but I don't even know that we know enough yet to present to the full board. So maybe this should come back to committee.
So I'll jump in now that kind of has been discussed and stuff, and just kind of provide some direction, some thought, and potentially something that we can do moving forward. The way that our current structure is set up, and I'll use a similar example, which is vault, right? So we have probation, we have intervention, and we have a vault that does our drug testing for both of our participants. The board has 2 separate contracts and Premier has 1 contract. So the board has a contract with Vault for our investigations. The board has a contract with Vault for our probationers, and Premier holds the contract with Vault for our intervention. It's just the way that is ran through. but it is a single company with 3 different contracts that have to be 3 different contracts managed in their own way with the same company. So again, if this is a process that lives within Premier for intervention, it doesn't say that we could not also get that and have a contract with our probationers, and whatever company wins that bid could be aligned, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be a single contract that would be our board contracting for intervention, for probation, for investigations. Sorry, investigations, wouldn't use the nursing support group facilitator. Sorry about that. So enforcement. So we would have to look at what Premier's contract is, and we would have to, that's a starting point, is look at that contract, find out what Premier's role is in this, because Premier can choose to contract with anybody they choose to manage their services. And so dependent upon that would depend on whether or not that would fall under the board's purview or under the contract that we've already have in place with Premier as a vendor. Separate from that, when you guys as a committee decide that this is an area that needs addressed, you saying that I want to make a recommendation to the full board that staff explore this option means we've got a green light to move forward. It doesn't mean that we have to come back to the board to have you guys kind of dictate the process going forward, because at that point, board staff takes that over and we go through our bid process, we go through our contracting process, and we align it with what is the best practices out there. So you guys don't have to be prescriptive of this. This does not have to go back in front of committee again. And you could have us just explore those options to move forward with that solution of getting a contract and not necessarily dictating what that contract does hold. You could, in that recommendation, say that you would like the board to the board staff to explore this and to ensure that we include the cost, that the board should cover the cost. If you want to be very prescriptive in that, that's something that we could then ensure becomes part of that. Again, that all then, even after you guys want that and ask for that, it still has to go through the contract, the bidding process, and we still have to have the money earmarked for us to be able to spend in that manner. So just to be clear, you can make any recommendation to the full board. The full board can accept your recommendation. It does not mean that we get stuck in a loop of not moving this forward. We can begin moving it forward, and we can follow the rules and regulations and the guidelines that we need to in order to make that successful.
Well, I mean, I guess I'm kind of inclined to move forward, knowing that at some point, if it's going in a direction that, we don't like, I feel uncertain at this point. I have a lot of unanswered questions, so I'm reluctant to make a recommendation, but just because we make a recommendation doesn't mean we can't, pull back at some point. So go ahead, Ms. Cormack.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Wynn. I guess, sometimes when I make a decision, I try to sort of test it against what's our other option. And the other option would be to, add a little more structure to the program to the extent we're able to. Again, I understand we don't have regulations as a board ourselves, voluntary, training programs, things like that. And that would probably, achieve a fair amount for a small amount of money and effort. But it wouldn't necessarily get us to the consistent part. And we wouldn't be able to subsidize or defray the cost entirely. This is probably not the biggest cost that they have, but we do know that this is a really important part of their recovery program. Yeah. I'm sorry I'm not as clear as I am sometimes about which direction to go. I don't know, our board doesn't tend to have the structure where we ask staff to sort of investigate and make a recommendation. But I feel like that's a little bit where we are, like a little bit more information about what happens if we just, you know, work, try to standardize it ourselves a little bit?
I can let you guys know with
Please.
our staffing constraints that we have right now, us taking this on and trying to standardize it is not going to have the benefit that you're hoping to get.
Okay, that's helpful.
We
That's
just
really helpful.
don't have the staff time in our current structure to do that. If we were to take on nursing support group facilitators and do any kind of due diligence to make it this process, we would have to go through the budget change proposal request, and that would be a year from now. If we wanted to standardize things in regulations, you know, we have a full regulatory calendar right now that Marissa is trying desperately to manage and work through, and that's going to be time consuming. And we have a lot of high priority packages ahead of this that need to move. This would take a back seat in the kind of effort that we have to put forward that. And so that would be a couple years down the line before we'd make any regulatory change for it as well. So going out for contract and allowing that process to happen the way that the state has it designed, I think would be the most effective and responsive way that we could do right now. And as we are writing that contract or writing that bid, sorry, not writing the contract, as we're going out for bid, if that process elicits some questions that I feel that our board staff is not able to work through with the expertise of Shannon, who has been doing this for years and years and has a really good understanding all this, if she can't do that, then we would bring it in front of our board to get some input from you guys. But we do have some really strong, talented staff that I think if we went out to the contracting process, if that is something that you guys would like to do, that we would make our bid very, very kind of foolproof, and we would manage anything that came up with us, especially even if we got a contract and the person that won that contract was not 100% equipped. As you guys have been able to see with us bringing on Premier, is with the help of Yvonne and Shannon and Jaspreet, Premier is doing an amazing job with a process they've never done before. And so we have credible staff that can manage that if the board is looking at wanting to move forward, and we can report out the process with you guys as it goes along.
Well, that's a very strong argument in favor of, you know, moving forward, because I don't think delaying 2 years is a good option at this point. What do others think?
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, David.
I was just going to say, I agree. And I think if all we're doing is giving the staff the green light to move on it, if that doesn't happen in November, then there's another 3 months. You know what I mean? So I think it's important to do that now.
So what would we be at? So what are we asking? Are we recommending that staff come to the full board meeting and request permission to develop an RFP?
So what you got, we're at the committee, and the committee does the work for the board. So we're asking for your recommendation to the board, and then staff would not have to come to the board. The board would consider your recommendation, and your board would typically say, I accept the recommendation of IEC to move on this, and we move forward. The board could say, you know, the other remaining 5 members, because we still have 1 vacancy, said, you know what, I don't think I heard enough, I would like to open this back up. Then board staff can be there and ready to answer questions as needed. But you are able to, as a committee, which is what our education licensing committee does, make a recommendation to the board. The board then just accepts the recommendation of the committee.
Yeah, that's fine. I think the open question for me is on bearing the expense entirely for participants, or on a partial basis. And we don't have enough information today. So I would be looking for staff to either show the options, right? Option is everyone pays 125. Option everybody pays something in the middle. Option 3, everybody pays 0. And understand a little bit of the delta to what today is. I realize we don't have all the information or the impact, That's the only lever that I'm having a little trouble figuring out what the right answer is. I don't know. I guess if we go out to, I don't know if that has to be established before we go out to bid.
It has to be. So again, we can't put a dollar amount on this because we don't know who would win a contract, right?
Understand.
And so what Birchwood collects or utilizes may not be what the winning contract has if we didn't go with Birchwood. So you cannot put a number on it. What you need to, as a committee, decide or defer to the board to decide is, do you want to cover the administrative costs? Do you want to cover the administrative cost and the cost per participant for their time in front of the support group? Or do you want to cover just the support group? And it really comes down to what you want to cover, because what we will do is add that into the bid that says the contract that says our board is wanting to do this and we expect to cover all administrative costs and we expect to cover 50% of the cost of the nurse facilitator, whatever.
That's exactly
what you guys
what I was
have
thinking.
to part. Yeah.
That's the one that came to mind for me. And I'll tell you why, because there is some research that suggests that when people get something for free, they don't value it the same way as if they make a small contribution. So, the one that leaps out to me of that would be that the board covers the admin costs and 50% of the cost of the session, but I'm open to other suggestions.
I like that suggestion. So it sounds like we're coming to, an agreement on directing staff. I'm not making a motion yet because I'm looking for input, but that we're going to direct staff to put together a proposal for an RFP to present it to the full board, where we look for a vendor to standardize our nursing support group with, special attention to the cost to participants along the lines that Lori just suggested. What do other committee members think about that? And of course, Lori, I'm always interested in your point of view also.
So let me try to put that in what a motion might sound like, is that you guys as a committee would make a recommendation to the board to explore contracting the oversight of the nursing support group facilitators to a company, and with the expectation that the board would cover administrative costs and 50% of the cost of the participant would bear in order to participate in these group settings. And then that would all that you would have to do. If that is something that you guys would like, you would say so moved. We'd get a second. The board could then accept that recommendation or alter it at the board meeting. And then remembering that that has no bearing on what happens in the contracting. So we would go out to contract, we would put in what you would ask for, and then depending on what is available to us is what we would be able to go forward based on our fund condition, based on everything else. And that happens outside of the board's purview.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, David.
David Lawler,
we already
second.
went to public comment. So you could go back out again if you chose to, or you could just do a roll call vote at this point.
I don't think we'll go back out to public comment. I'm comfortable. There'll be an opportunity for public comment when we present this to the board. So Chair Wynn votes aye. Board Member Cormack?
Cormack, yes.
Board Member Lawler?
Lawler, yes.
Okay, that motion passes. Lori, thank you for your guidance on that.
Thank you. And I don't need to give you guidance on this one, so I'll let you go for it, Trish.
You guys, thanks for your hard work on committee today, and we're ready to adjourn. So moved.
Moved. Thank you, Trish. Reza.
Thank you all.
See everybody next
See you all next month.
Okay, bye-bye.